Welcome to Unit 8. In this unit, we're going to learn how to graph trig functions. Now, thankfully for you, we are only going to learn how to graph sine and cosine. So we're not going to talk about graphing tangent or secant or cosecant or cotangent. We're just going to talk about graphing sine and cosine. Now, to start this off, we have a couple vocabulary words we're going to talk about. And we need to figure out what the basic sine and cosine graph actually look like. So I'm going to have you pause the video for a second and try to go find a unit circle to look at for this next part. So if you have your laminated unit circle we made in class, get that out. If you just have one from your notes from Unit 7, get that out. But pause the video, get out a unit circle of some sort to look at for this next part. Okay, hopefully you found yourself a unit circle to look at. So we're going to start by remembering that sine is our y value and cosine is our x value. We wrote that at the bottom of our laminated unit circle, but that is always true. Sine is y, cosine is x. So what we're going to do is look at that unit circle at these angles. So I have my unit circle right here. So we can start at 0 degrees, and I want to find the sine value or the y value. So here's where my unit circle is. 0 degrees is right there. So I just look at the point at 0 degrees, and then I look at the y value for that point. So if I'm looking there, the y value at that point is 0. So I say that's a 0. Next, I go to 90 degrees and look at the y value. So once again, here's my unit circle. 90 degrees is up here. There's my point. So I look at that point and find the y value. And the y value at 90 degrees is 1. So at 90 degrees, the y value is 1. Now we do the same thing at 180. So you find 180 degrees on the unit circle and look at the y value. Well, at 180 degrees, the y value is 0. Do the same thing for 270. At 270 degrees, the y value is negative 1. So at 270, it goes down to negative 1. And then finally back to 360, which is the same thing at 0. The y value is 0. So we start to get this wavy shape going on. And this is actually the graph of sine. I call this the S wave, because S for sine, and it kind of looks like an S on its side. You'll notice it starts at the middle, then it goes up to a maximum point, then down to a minimum point, and then back up to my middle point again. That's the S wave. Now, if we come right here at this right here, I've got this angle. Here's my unit circle. And if I tell it to graph the sine, you're going to see that shape that we just did right there. There's our S shape that we just drew. Now, you'll also notice it does the S shape and repeats it. And S shape, repeat. S shape, repeat. Oops, didn't mean to move it. There we go. So it takes that S shape and repeats it over and over and over and over again. S shape, repeat. S shape, repeat. S shape, repeat. So the next question we want to ask ourselves is, why does it repeat that S shape over and over and over and over again? And the answer to that comes from this circle. So if you look right here, that point on this circle can go around the circle again and again and again and again. Because it's a circle, we can go around it as many times as we want. So this S shape is going around the circle once. Then I repeat it to go around the circle again. And I repeat it to go around the circle again. And that creates what we call the sine wave, because it looks like a wave over and over and over again. This also introduces us to our first vocabulary word, which you'll want to write down, which is periodic. Periodic means repeats the same shape over and over. And this is very unique to our trig functions, because trig functions are all on the unit circle. Sine, cosine, and tangent are all on the unit circle. So the way we remember these is we figure out what the shape is for that graph once, and then we just have to repeat that shape over and over and over again because it's periodic. Now, sine, cosine, tangent, cosecant, secant, cotangent, they all have different shapes, but it's still the same shape repeated over and over and over again. So sine has this S shape, and then we're just going to keep repeating that S shape to make the sine. So now what we want to do is figure out the cosine shape. And we're going to do it the same way that we did sine. I'm going to have you look at your unit circle. We know that cosine is x, so you're going to look at each of these angles on your unit circle, find what the x value is, and plot it. So, for example, at 0 degrees on the unit circle, the x value is 1. And then you do the same for the rest. So I want you to pause the video, finish filling in the rest of all those, and then come back to check and see if you got the right shape. Welcome back. Let's see how you did. At 90 degrees, the x value is 0. At 180 degrees, the x value is -1. At 270, the x value is 0. And at 360, the x value is 1. So now we get this wave shape. You see it's a different shape than sine. I call this one the C wave because C for cosine, and it kind of looks like a C laying on its side. So different shape than sine, and then we would take this shape and repeat it over and over because it's periodic. And we can see that right here on this graph. Wait for it to come around to here again. Almost. There we go. And right there, there's our C shape. So we got the C shape, and then repeat that C shape. And we can come over here, repeat that C shape, and repeat the C shape over and over and over again because it's periodic. It repeats the same shape over and over. It just has a slightly different shape than sine. So there's our C shape. So now we know what the sine S wave and the cosine C wave look like. Now we can start to manipulate them and change them by stretches. But before I get into that, I do want to mention one thing. Make sure you don't get lazy with these curves. I see a lot of students that get lazy and draw the C wave like that. This is not a pointy curve, it's a curvy curve. So make sure it's curvy like our C wave. I see the same thing with sine where they draw it like that. This isn't pointy, it's curvy, so make sure it looks like a curve. I'll also see a lot of students that make their S wave kind of lazy diagonal, kind of more like a Z wave. This is not a Z wave, it's one on top of the other, it's straight to give you that S shape. So make sure when you're drawing these, you don't have to be a perfect artist, but don't be lazy when you're drawing them, and make sure it actually matches the shape we have right here in our notes. Okay, that's the end of this video. In the next video, we're going to talk about taking these two curves and stretching them up and down and side to side to see what that does to them.